Howdy everyone, how are you doing? I hope all of you are doing well. I will be your instructor for today's session. My name is Bizhu. We will discuss issues of bilingual education in international context, and we will primarily focus on Chinese bilingual education. For your information, I'm from China. So let's get started. I will share my screen with you first. Okay, so you will be able to see my side. All right. We want to start our topic by mentioning about English learners. I believe this is a term that you are very familiar with. English learners are a diverse population of students who learn English in school, and they are from different cultural backgrounds. Since we're in the United States, as we talk about English learners, we always refer to students from kindergarten to 12th grade and students who study in the United States. Even though the students are in the same country, they are quite diverse. They might be immigrants from countries all over the world. They can be refugees from war-torn countries. They can be Native Americans or other native-born Americans, or they can be children or teenagers who have little prior formal schooling. If we look at English learners through a broader view, we will find that English learners can be across the world. So a broader definition of English learners would be any bilingual learner who learns English as a second or foreign language. These learners can reside in different regions, including countries of expanding circles. I will elaborate the idea of expanding circle in the next slide. Linguist Cashew, I believe this is how the name is pronounced. Cashew has categorized countries into 3 domains based on how they use English. The first domain is the inner circle, in which English is used as the first language. A common understanding is that this domain includes 5 countries. They are United States, United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. The second domain is the outer circle. Due to historical reasons, these countries were dominated or colonized by English native countries. That is to say, countries from the inner circles. Therefore, English is one of the official languages, or it is widely used in daily life as a communicative language. This domain includes India, Singapore, and Philippines. The last domain is the expanding circle, in which English is extensively studied as a foreign language. Specifically in the social context, English is not used for daily communication. This domain includes China, Japan, and Korea. I was wanting to say that these 3 countries share many similarities in terms of English education. Like other countries, in China, English learning has been largely influenced by political and educational policies. So let's get a brief view of the development of bilingual education in China. China started its opening up and reform policy in the late 1970s, specifically 1978. This is a very important policy in regards to economic development that China decides to open up its gate to run business and interact with overseas countries. Starting from then, English language education has become high on the central government's modernization agenda because we need to communicate in terms of in academic and economy aspects. And also in the 1990s, some elite schools have launched bilingual education programs. 2 of the programs were science programs developed in Guangzhou and Shanghai. These 2 cities are both southern eastern cities with high level of modernization and international communication. This is something that we will go through that we will walk through in this lecture, that education, especially English education in China, is always associated with economy and resources. On average, schools that launch bilingual programs are well-resourced, prestigious. According to who is a research that delves into bilingual education in China. These schools have competent teaching staff, high caliber students, and long-established connections with domestic tertiary institutions or overseas educational institutions. I was wanting to say that in China, bilingual education programs or English instruction in primary and secondary level are always facilitated by universities and also personnel from overseas. When I was in my high school, we had foreign teachers from. I remember he was from New Zealand. We had this foreign teacher to help us in terms of English instruction. The social context for English learning in China. I'm not sure if you guys know that United States does not have an official language. Even though everybody speaks English and the expectation is to use English throughout both communicative and official scenarios. But United States does not have any document or law to mandate an official language. But in China, mainland China, Mandarin Chinese is the only official language. Even though we speak different language, including some dialects like Cantonese and minority languages, those languages were used or spoken only within specific areas, not across China. So it is natural to think that way. In China, everybody speaks Mandarin in public. The expectation is for you to speak 普通话, which is the standard oral English form of Mandarin. So English is seldom used in daily communicative scenarios in China. But China has a large number of English learners. They range from elementary to graduate level. So students in elementary, secondary, undergrad, and graduate levels study English, which is very interesting. And even for people who are at a workplace, they spare time to study English. So the purpose for these types of learners are kind of different. For people who are in schooling, they study English for passing tests or to improve themselves for communication or academic purposes. But for people who are at work, they study English for career development. And also, since traveling and economy are increasing between China and other countries, some people study English for purpose of traveling so that they can communicate smoothly. In China, bilingual education can refer to 3 types of teaching approaches. The first one is teaching English as a foreign language, which can be shortened as TEFL. The second one is teaching content subject using English as a medium, which is to say that in some schools, the teachers will teach science or math using English. The third approach refers to Mandarin and minority language education. So like for instance, Tibetan is a minority language. So in some of the public schools in Tibet, the teacher will use Tibetan and Mandarin to teach content subjects together. From fall of 2001, the Ministry of Education of China, MOE, mandate required that primary schools located in cities and as well as counties to start offering English classes in 3rd grade. So since then, students who are from 3rd grade to the 6th grade which is the elementary levels. So in China, elementary school ranges from grade 1 to grade 6. So starting from the third grade up until the sixth grade, the classes will be there will be English subject classes. And this is also applicable for secondary, including middle and high schools. This becomes an important turning point for schools to start English subject. I can still recall that when I was young, I studied English starting at my 5th grade. And some of my friends from rural areas, they didn't even learn English until they were in middle school. This is already the history. Nowadays, some elite schools even start to teach English upon children's entry of elementary school. So currently in China, the age that people start to learn English becomes younger and younger. Not only elementary and secondary levels, English language education has also been expanding in the higher education sector. In the same year, 2001, in August, the MOE issued a directive for improving the quality of undergrad programs, which required that within 3 years, 5 to 10% of undergrad courses should be offered by English or other foreign languages. But English would be the most prevalently used foreign language in China. The long-term goal was to have at least 20% of undergrad courses conducted in English. Why people study English extensively in China? Why there's such a huge population in China to learn English? The first reason is that English is becoming increasingly critical in today's world. It is an important tool as a world language. We can obtain more information for academic and economic purposes via English, even with people who are from countries that don't speak English as their first languages. Also, English learning is a process of cultural enrichment and intellectual development for individual learners. But for students specifically, one of the major reasons to learn English is to pass these different tests. So starting from elementary school, there is a secondary entrance exam, and that will include English subject, as well as high school entrance exam and college entrance exam. All these high-stake assessments will have English subject. And for Chinese university students specifically, they're required to take different types of English tests, including CET4, CET6. CET is short for College English Test, as well as Time 4, Time 8. TEM refers to Test for English Majors. So CET4 and CET6 are high-stake English assessments for students who are non-English major students. And Time 4 and Time 8 are specifically for English major students in China. And in many universities, CET4 and TEM4 are prerequisite for non-English majors and English major students to obtain their bachelor's degree respectively. That is to say, if you fail to pass these two exams throughout the 4 years of university studies, some of the universities will refuse to offer you your diploma. A very interesting phenomenon to note is that reading comprehension accounts for a large proportion of the total scores in these aforementioned tests. And speaking is optional or not even included in these assessments. So Chinese students are good at reading, but on average, they show comparatively low speaking competency. In recent years, it was after I graduated from undergrad, the government initiated discussion on removing English from the national university matriculation exams, or reducing the weighing of it while increasing the weighing of Chinese education. Researchers believe that this policy is suggestive of the Chinese government's design to confirm the unchallengeable status of the national standard Chinese for its rise to be a new international language. Because nowadays, the Western culture has a huge influence on Chinese people's daily life. For instance, even though the majority of Chinese do not have religious belief, we still celebrate Christmas. What we do, or like we go out shopping, playing around, gathering with our families or friends. Other Western cultures, such as popular music, movies, are having huge impact on the younger generation, especially Generation Z. So I believe this is one of the reason why the Chinese government is trying to emphasize traditional Chinese. Also, this change suggests a reduction on teaching hours and portion of college entrance exam for English subject. But up till now, as far as I know, that Chinese students are still learning English as a subject in their schools. And also college entrance exams still take English subject, which makes a large portion in the test. But this kind of trend might profoundly influence the developmental course of Chinese English bilingual education programs. We cannot say that in the future, the current situation will remain unchanged. Probably there might be a change due to this ongoing policy. Actually, bilingual education receives critiques in China. A major reason for these negative comments come from the concern of educational inequality. As we have already discussed the importance of resource and economy that is associated with education. Bilingual education is also associated with the elite origin. If you could recall that the schools that have firstly started bilingual education programs are schools with very good resources and teaching staffs. So bilingual education is usually launched by well-resourced urban schools and in economically developed areas. So China is really huge. And different regions have different policies and economic status. So oftentimes bilingual education are launched in the southeastern area versus western area, vast area. Those areas lack educational resources and teaching resources. So the development of bilingual education programs may cause social division along the line of those who have and who have not. This is one of the concerns. Also, researchers stated that the implementation of the bilingual education program may even help to perpetuate educational inequities in China for making bilingual instruction as a service to the privileged, the rich, and the elite. I personally hope that won't happen. But education always go along with investment, specifically investment of time and money. So families with more social and economic resources will invest heavily in helping their children to access bilingual education programs so that these children can acquire better proficiency and achieve upward social mobility. In reality, in China, English is widely assessed. For instance, for students who try to enter graduate programs in Chinese universities, as well as overseas companies, the admission committee or employer will um, give these employer or students an interview via English. So it is quite realistic for Chinese people to improve their English, especially oral English proficiency, which is a quite limited resource in public schools. So going back to the advantaged families, parents from these families can spare more time with their children. They hire tutors and bring their children to travel overseas. These experiences are quite beneficial to students' English proficiency and their understanding of diverse culture, but these experiences are not accessible to economically disadvantaged children. A result can be that children from families with limited social and economic resources are left behind in the race of opportunities to pursue upward social mobility. That poses as with a question. As educators, how can we better serve Chinese students in English learning? We will discuss some of the pedagogical approaches in the following session. EFL learning was synergically influenced by a range of individual and environmental factors, including communication competence, confidence, cognitive, linguistic, and affective factors. We will mention each of these aspects later on. The first thing we want to think about is communication confidence. Communication confidence is the perceived competence coupled with a lack of anxiety. Self-perception of competence may emerge only when one has ideas and possesses the linguistic resources to express them. So one of the approaches to foster students' confidence is to enhance their self-efficacy. What is self-efficacy then? Self-efficacy is the belief that one has on the capacities to learn or perform behaviors at the desired level. Why is self-efficacy important, and how does it relate to communication competence or communication confidence? Research shows that self-efficacy influences learners' persistence of learning and academic achievement. In an EFL context, self-efficacy may contribute to learners' willingness to communicate in English. So that is to say, students who are with higher self-efficacy are more willing to open up and speak as they practice through their oral engagement. They might enhance their actual performance. The most important approach to foster learner self-efficacy is to provide learners with multiple opportunities to experience success in the learning process. Since English is not used in daily communication in China, teachers need to organize public speaking activities and allow students to experience success in these activities. The following section will present research-based pedagogical methods from cognitive, linguistic, and affective aspects. So starting with cognitive aspects. For students to learn a language well, especially older learners, such as adolescents and adults, metacognition is very important. Metacognition refers to the sense that learners are aware of what they are learning. Higher metacognition skills relate to managing the learning process. A very simple but effective strategy for teachers is to provide students agenda at the beginning of the class so that students have the overview of the schedule for the class. Also, teachers can write the agenda on the blackboard so that students can monitor the learning process in class. As they look at the agenda, like bullet points one by one, they will easily understand, they will easily track where we're at in this lesson. Another idea in terms of cognitive aspect is resilience. Resilience refers to something that stands out. In language teaching, it indicates to help students identify and understand important points. Human minds pay attention to things that stimulate their senses. So for these stimulus, they will leave deeper impression on our memory. So taking reading as an example, after reading the text, teacher can guide the students to summarize the gist of the text. These points will stand out in students' memory as they record the learning. Teachers can list bullet points to help students to memorize them. Also, it is important for teachers to give students time to process the knowledge. As we mentioned about knowledge processing, we need first to distinguish declarative knowledge between procedural knowledge. Declarative knowledge can be thought of as knowledge about. So specific examples of declarative knowledge are facts and rules of mathematical operations. In terms of language learning, declarative knowledge includes rules of grammar as well as specific words. Procedural knowledge is knowing how to do something. Specifically, procedural knowledge refers to how to drive a car and how to solve a mathematical problem using the operations. In language learning, procedural knowledge refers to how to use a particular grammar rule in a specific sentence and how to organize a sentence using the words that students already know. Part of learning is to transfer declarative knowledge into procedural knowledge, and such process takes time. That's why teachers want to give students some time to think after introducing new concepts or discussing complex ideas. For the previous example of providing students with the gist, the teacher can give students 1 or 2 minutes to review what they have learned before starting group discussion. Provide students with this time, the teacher can anticipate that students transfer declarative knowledge into procedural knowledge. And students can go from knowing the knowledge to knowing how to use it. We all know that language starts from morpheme, then we have words. From words, we structure clauses and then sentences. In learning the language, students need scaffolding, through which they learn step by step. Examples of scaffolding are modeling and conceptualization. In terms of modeling, teachers need to provide a sample or a model as successful example before giving students the assignment or project. Also, by illustrating the example, instead of just giving students the example, teachers need to walk students through the example via interaction so that the students can know the teacher's expectation. Through the process of illustrating the examples, teachers can take questions from the students so that they can better clarify what they expect the assignment look like. For instance, in a class where teachers and students are doing interactive reading, teachers can guide students to think and to speak. The box on the left are some ideas that scaffold students to think. For instance, the teachers can notice the students to use prior knowledge and ask questions about ideas and phrases that they don't understand. Also, the teachers can encourage the students to apply related concepts and readings based on the given text. The box on the right provides sentence structures that students can use as they talk about the reading text. This technique is applicable especially among beginning or intermediate learners who have difficulty in organizing complete sentences. For instance, when students talk about their comprehension or understanding of the given text, they can say that I'm not sure what this is about, but I think it may, followed by their own thoughts. They can also say that what I understand about this reading so far is, what I don't understand at all is. These sentences can provide guidance as students work on the tasks and express their own ideas. Another aspect is a combination of both cognitive and linguistic aspect. That is to use schema. Using schema is a cluster of meaning that are interconnected. This is how we organize knowledge and understanding. The way we form new knowledge is to tweak new information into pre-existing structural meaning. Teachers as facilitators need to help English learners to see these connections and actually connect their prior knowledge to new knowledge. Again, we want to use reading activities as an example. When preparing for a reading assignment, a teacher may ask students to preview the text, noting headings, subheadings, illustrations, and captions, titles of the charts, etc. In this way, students begin to understand the structure of the reading. Also, they will be aware of the topics and the organizations. With their schema already activated and ready to accept new connections. Then we come to affective aspect. In an English classroom, teachers should plan group collaboratives and interactions and pay close attention to providing equal opportunities for interaction in order to balance the students' participation. Language learning is improved through social cultural interaction. So why we want to emphasize for the teachers to be moderators of learning opportunity. One of the reasons is because students with different personalities can perform differently in an English classroom. Specifically, students who are more extrovert and good at speaking may talk more than those who are very shy or introvert. An example of equal learning opportunity is the jigsaw activity. In this activity, students will interact and collaborate with each other. So let's look at how this activity is implemented step by step. To start with, the teacher organized students into groups of 4 to 6. Then the teacher divides the reading materials into 4 to 6 parts, depending on how many groups we have. And then the teacher will assign one student in each group to be responsible for a different segment. Given students time, then the teachers will give students time to learn and process their assigned segment independently. Next, the teacher puts students who complete the same segment together into an expert group to talk about and process the details of their segment, so that the students can collaborate and interact with each other. After this step, the teacher will have students return to their original jigsaw groups and take turns sharing the segment they've become experts on. Through this process, each group will organize the complete reading story based on individual student segment. Finally, if the teacher would like to implement an ongoing assessment, the teacher can give a task or a quiz for the whole group of the students. In the jigsaw activity, there are some students who are more capable. These students might be the leaders or experts in the group discussion. Teachers need to be aware that the effects from experts and novice, meaning students who are weaker in reading or communicative competence. The effects from experts and novice should be mutual and interactive. Teacher needs to emphasize the idea that students' success or failure is co-shared rather than located in one or the other participant alone. This is very important for students to form collaborative competency. Also, by noticing that both expert and novice students need to speak up and share their information mutually, the teacher is trying to create a balanced classroom environment in which all the students can participate and contribute to the group project. Another sub-area of effective aspect is learners' motivation. Teachers need to foster students to learn English through an expanded and integrated vision, meaning that to integrate learning with students' life and their expectation in both academic and future career. Study has reported that Chinese learners are highly motivated to learn English. However, they do not invest as much since the opportunities for them to practice English in mainland China is quite limited. And if you could recall from our previous slide, the majority of the assessments emphasize on reading. So compared to reading, Chinese students spare much less time in speaking. Methods to motivate students include frequent engagement in communication, in both curricular or extracurricular activities. Second language learning motivation is associated with salient points. By saying salient points, I mean visualization aspects such as visual, auditory, sensory styles. Therefore, in designing a lecture, the instructor is encouraged to involve multimedia methods and sensory stimulating materials. For younger learners, teachers can use hands-on materials so that students can have more sensory involved to increase their motivation. That will be all for today's lesson. I hope this lecture gives you some ideas of bilingual education in general and also bilingual education in Chinese context. Also, I hope you find this instructional methods helpful in teaching English to EFLs. I believe that some of the techniques are also effective if you work with ELs in the United States. So let's call it today then. Thank you.